Hey guys, welcome back to the official podcast of Development Unplugged. And we're a little bit behind schedule with setting everything up, so bear with us. I will be joined here in a couple of minutes. But today's topic is a very important one because I think one of the biggest challenges in building strong relationships, learning to communicate maturely and actually resolve problems and conflicts and create win-win solutions. One of the biggest challenges is managing your emotions and your frustrations. Many times we give so much power to our emotions and our frustrations right away, and we react. We react in a way that we burn bridges, that we offend people, that we amplify people's insecurities, and we bring out the worst in ourselves and in others. So it's one of those topics that we need to reflect on. Why are we deteriorating our relationships by giving so much power to short-term frustration instead of actually looking at what are my medium to long-term goals? How do I actually want to build a future? How do I actually want to fix things? How do I actually want to build bridges? How do I want to open up dialogues? How do I want to create enough confidence in a person so that they express themselves with me? Because I'm already imagining all of you have a case of some family member, some friend, or someone in your lives that has criticized you a lot, that has constantly put you down. Nothing has ever been good enough. They've been very upset with you many times, and their general state is, quite critical. And what happens when you have a lot of conflicts or a lot of, if you're receiving a lot of quote unquote hate, even though it's not hate half the time and we interpret it as such, but when you receive too much negativity, it's hard to open up. If you think that the moment you express yourself, you're going to get told off, you're going to, get beaten up, you're going to get ridiculed, you're not going to express yourself. And we cut ourselves into pieces trying to be something we're not. Just to avoid that rejection, just to avoid that frustration. And one thing I want you to reflect on is go beyond what fear of rejection do you have and start thinking of what fear of rejection are you actually instilling in others? How much are you making other people feel like they're wrong, like they're not good enough, like they're making mistakes all the time? And how much are you amplifying the insecurities in others by not knowing how to pick your battles? And this happens when we end up getting so emotionally expressive in moments where we are drained emotionally, mentally, socially, or physically, and we just kind of don't have enough mental clarity to be empathetic, to be understanding, to be patient, to be flexible, and we just get outright upset and we just lash out at people. So I want you to reflect on how much are you lashing out at people and generating insecurities in others? How much do people have to lie to you, hide things from you, or just kind of avoid you to be happy? Because I'm sure you can think of people that have rejected you and have made you feel bad, but I also want you to look at the other side. How often do you make other people more insecure? And by picking your battles wisely, and it's called picking your battles, not eliminating battles, because sometimes you got to have disagreements, sometimes you got to have some slightly heated debates about things, and that's okay. But pick them wisely, because if you don't pick your battles wisely, you're going to waste a lot of energy, resources, confidence, and trust on petty things. So don't let petty arguments turn into big explosive arguments. And Des is joining us. Welcome. And you just hurt yourself, Oh. She just hit her knee on the corner of the... Ouch.
Oh, there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain.
It's Kinder's fault. By the way, some people have been telling us that they haven't seen Kinder on the podcast. It's always Kit Kat. And guess what? Kinder is on. And Manatee told us last week that she never sees Kinder on the podcast, and today she can't be here. She told us she's going to watch live afterwards, which is sad because we love her her interaction. We love you, by the way, because we know you're gonna watch it here in a bit. But yeah, that's Kinder. So hi,
Hi.
how's your knee?
It's okay. It hurts, but
It
it's
hurts.
okay. It's okay.
It's an annoying pain when you hit yourself like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very annoying.
Okay, so this is a good topic for you
Yeah.
because you have a lot of experience with people that don't know how to pick the battles.
Oh, me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I. I'm terrible. I like fighting with my old self. My drained self likes to fight with people for no reason.
I think that's a good like condition you're putting on what you're saying. Like when you're drained and your worst self.
Yeah, when I'm not drained and when I'm like the best version of myself, I could care less. But when I am drained, I love to pick fights with people. So yeah, it just kind of depends on what's the day looking like, and how I feel and what
No,
I'm going through.
and you're not too bad actually. I think a lot of people in your family and in your past relationships have kind of shown you things that you don't want to repeat.
Yeah. I mean, I did grow up obviously here in this country in Mexico, and like, um, it is a country where a lot of families like to argue, and it's very normal for violence, and for screaming and yelling, and like it's a country where that's very, very normal. It's something that you see every day. There's memes everywhere of people uh you know making fun of beating up your kids and stuff. Like it's quite normal, and in some way I've never agreed with that. I don't like I'm not gonna say I don't have anger issues, because I do, but I definitely I don't agree with the physical violence and all of that. So yeah, it's uh it's very common here.
Yeah, it's something that sometimes you can learn what to do from people, but you can also learn what not to do. And Begonia says, I was wondering where Desiree was. I can see that when I'm drained, I tend to react or just run away from problems and discussions. But I usually try to have an adult conversation. My respects. Like it is important to try to have an adult conversation. But yes, many times we get into a fight or flight mode in terms of like when there's conflict, when there's drama, our brain kind of sends some signals of, oh, okay, there's a problem here. And either you have to fight to defend yourself or you have to flee. And it can be one of those cases where sometimes it's easier to just run away. And for me, sometimes I avoid conflicts. Like sometimes I put up with things I shouldn't. Sometimes I just kind of agree to things I don't want to agree to, just to kind of let the problem kind of go away. But by not facing it, sometimes the problem gets bigger.
Yeah, and I sometimes do the complete opposite, and I face the problem, but I face it with violence and yelling and screaming. And yeah, so I've been working on that. I do have anger issues. I've had anger issues since I was a little girl. Like it's something very natural. But in the environment that I grew up with, and growing up with lots of bullying in school, it kind of built me up to be that person. And if I didn't defend myself, if I didn't yell, if I didn't scream, if I didn't fight back, it was people kept doing it. So my way of, instead of telling an adult, and in school you would be like a tattleteller, like if you told an adult,
Snitches get stitches.
yes, you were a snitch. So I learned very fast that if I wanted someone to respect me, it was gonna have to be a fight, and I had to.
And this is why it's called you pick your battle, because there are going to be times where you have to stand up for yourself. There are going to be times where you have to put your foot down. There are going to be times where you got to have a strong debate about something. But unfortunately, sometimes we learn to develop certain coping mechanisms
Yeah.
and defense mechanisms. And when it comes to conflicts, sometimes we develop this mechanism where we just react. Like we react almost mechanically with a lot of emotions mixed in, but it's just like this button got pressed. Okay, my instant reaction is I get this button pressed, my insecurities explode, my battery goes down, and then I start, fighting. And sometimes we waste so much energy in petty fights that make us destroy relationships. And one of the things, and we've talked about this in the podcast, is we consciously take like steps to make sure that the other person trusts the relationship enough to actually express themselves.
Yeah.
So sometimes we actually tell each other secrets and get the other person to tell secrets, but with the challenge of not getting upset, not reacting in an intense way, not letting it blow out of proportion, and just being like, okay, you know what, things are weighing you down right now, you can come to me. You don't have to hide them. You don't have to bundle them up.
Yeah, we have Yannick and I have like these 3 a.m. Where we talk about sessions where we talk about our feelings and our secrets and things that we haven't told each other, that we want to tell each other but we're afraid to tell each other.
Things where we feel shame or
Yeah,
guilt or
our guilt. And so we do have those sessions, and it's very good. And but also it works when both partners agree that we're not going to judge each other, we're not going to explode, because if you explode or you judge the other person, it's never going to work out. So you need to have that mindset. You need to open your mind and be like, okay, regardless of what my partner says, I'm not gonna judge.
no. And many times the things that are weighing you down that are harmless or silly or ridiculous, but we basically start developing anxieties and social anxieties because of all the judgment, because of all the rejection, because of all the explosions, because of the conflicts from the past, and we don't want to repeat it. But sometimes we're the ones that are causing that fear in the other person, and sometimes the other person caused that level of fear in us by fighting every fight, that all of a sudden we stop communicating. How many of you have had a situation where you just stop communicating? You stop expressing yourself because you think you're going to get in trouble every time. It's something that I know a lot of people that kind of have grown up in families where they've gotten either beaten up or told off constantly. They just learn to hide. They learn to lie. They learn to escape. And Des is going to get some comfy pillows because changing the chair wasn't enough for the princess.
It's because I love the new chairs. Don't get me wrong. I love these new chairs. But they're very low and I'm very small. So I look at the camera and I'm just like, oh my gosh, you could barely see me. I look so small. So I grab pillows and stuff because, well, one, they're more comfortable, and two, they do make me look a bit bigger.
Taller. Yeah. It's because you have a Napoleon complex. Do you know the Napoleon complex?
No.
Napoleon used to be very short, so he wanted to always compensate and look taller and stuff, and was very insecure about his height. So that's kind of the same.
On my height, it's just on the camera, Yannick looks like taller, and I look like I look very small.
As in real life.
Yeah.
But yeah. So on this topic, I really want you guys to explore how many insecurities you're instilling in others by sharing your insecurities, by sharing your fears without filter. But with a lot of emotions mixed in. Because there's a big difference between sharing your frustrations and your fears in a vulnerable, expressive, open way without pointing fingers. Like, for example, if I go to Des and I go, I'm feeling worried about this, I'm feeling sad about this is weighing on me, then it's like, oh, how can I help? Or like, we can do this, we can do that. And then there's a conversation about fixing things. But if I go to her and I go like, this is your fault and you hadn't done this and you did this wrong and you did this differently and why did you do this? And I just start pointing fingers. She'll get defensive, she'll start justifying, she'll be like, okay, if you don't like me, why are you with me? Blah, 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 and whatever. And it just blows out of control. But if I go, listen, I'm having these concerns. How can we fix this? How can we work together in this? And you make it feel like a team. That really, really helps a lot.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You're going to read a comment?
Yeah. So Begonia says, oops, I just realized as a kid I was reactive, trying to defend myself. But I was punished for doing that. And for many years, I stopped saying anything and I just disappeared. With years, I've learned to do it better. Wow. Yeah, one thing you have to identify is in what points in your life have things changed and why. And sometimes things change for the better, but sometimes what happens is we start suppressing ourselves. We start losing ourselves. We start becoming less expressive. We stop taking ourselves into account in our actions and our plans. And that gets a little sad and a little lonely. And finding that balance between, this is me expressing my needs, this is me expressing my frustrations, but at the same time, like finding a way to do it in a way that you're not burning bridges. And you've sometimes burned some bridges prematurely,
Oh, I burn bridges all the time.
and you've had to be like, oops, maybe I burned a bridge with that person too quickly.
Yeah, there are I burn bridges very quickly. There are three friends that I burned a bridge a couple months ago, and now I regret it, and now I just don't know how to, add them back on Facebook and be like, hey, I'm sorry, I was going through a moment. I do burn bridges before I should. And it's usually in a mental state where I'm very drained and stuff. But there is some bridges that I burn that I just don't care about. um,
No, not all relationships are worth saving. Not all relationships are worth keeping. Like there are times where it just makes sense, this is not working and it's not worth spending my energy, because you can heal most relationships, but it doesn't mean that every relationship is worth healing. You can
yeah,
fix most relationships, it doesn't mean most relationships are worth fixing.
yeah,
Yeah, you really got to assess, is this person someone that I want in my life right now? Are they going to contribute? Is there like some mutual goals, some context where we can share some positive experiences? Is there value and really like, is there growth in this person? Is this person trying to be better? Is
yeah.
this person committed to improving their emotional intelligence or their kindness or their collaboration, their patience and flexibility?
Yeah, for example, I'm a very hard person to love. Like, I'm a very hard person to be in a relationship with, a very hard person to have a friendship with. And one thing that I've always had a problem with is that people think that I'm not willing to change. And at some point in my life, yes, that could have been true, that I wasn't willing to change. But for example, Yannick's and I relationship, it isn't always is easy. Like, our relationship is very, very difficult, and especially when I have really bad days and when he is stressed. But one thing that I always communicate to Yannick is like I I have anger issues. Like I say, I have anger issues, and I've always been well, I used to have my own room. I grew like, obviously I had my own room and stuff, and so I'm used to throwing things, right? I'm used to shutting myself in my room and then just throwing things, throwing pillows, throwing whatever possible thing I could throw. And that's the way I let go of my anger, and I yell and stuff, and it is pretty hard. It's hard for me to control myself now that I live with Yannick, because I'm used to being
For
alone.
context, she makes it sound much worse than what she actually is. Just for context, don't worry. She's not actually a violent girlfriend. You don't need to worry
Yeah,
about me.
no, I don't.
But
No, I'm
she
not.
has these intense feelings
Yeah,
that she needs to manage.
yeah, and I have to learn to control them, and it's very, very difficult. Um, but how do I let Yannick know that I want to change is, um, either I tell him to leave the room, and then once I'm feeling better, I apologize and I tell him, hey, this is the reason why, and this and this and that. Under no circumstances do I ever hurt Yannick. No, 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 no. Uh, I mean, I'm able to control myself. I'm able to calm down. Like, I would never, never, never hurt him ever. But it is something that I'm used to. I'm used to being very violent. I'm used to physical violence, because that's something that I grew up with, and that's very natural and very normal, especially in the country that we live in. And but I do know that it's when I met Yannick, I realized, oh my goodness, it's not normal. You can actually go to jail for that. So
No,
it
I
is,
mean she has lived a lot of experiences that in some other countries where I've lived, I mean, like they would have gone to jail for that.
yeah.
Like you would have been mm, put into foster care for that. Like you would have like some of the things you've lived is like that's not good. And one thing we have to talk about with this whole process of exploring how to pick your battles is it's not about pointing fingers, neither at yourself nor at others. It's not about anyone being guilty. If you focus on guilt, you're not focusing on improving things. But one of the things I want to give her credit for is she has a long history of a lot of difficult experiences that have wired her brain in a way that she has a lot of anxiety. She has challenges with mental illness. Like,
Every single day.
it's a constant battle for her. Her head is constantly in a battle mode, and it's one of those things that every day she fights a new battle, and every day she fights multiple different battles, right? And when you understand that each person has their process, you can develop a lot of empathy with yourself and empathy with others. When we compare ourselves to others, we make ourselves less. But when we look at ourselves, where was I a year ago? Where was I 6 months ago? What type of relationships did I have? How have my relationship healed or improved over time? And your relationships with everyone, your friends, your family, they've all improved a lot in the last year.
Yeah, with the people that I've decided to keep in my life, obviously, my relationships have improved a lot, and it's mainly because I wanted to. Like
Yeah.
I've always been a person that I like looking for help.
Yeah.
And if someone can't give me that help, I always look for help. I grew up with being told like you have to fix your own problems. No one else needs to know your problems and all of that. And I kept that for years. For years I shut myself down. Like all my teenage years, I had depression, I had anxiety. Even when I was little, I had all of these problems, and I would just cry for no reason. I would hit things, I would be violent in school and at home. And I always kept that a secret. Like I never really told anybody that I was dating, and like it was very very kept a secret, everything that I had gone through. And I some things I didn't even tell my family, because I told myself I'm going to deal with this alone. And with time, all of that baggage that you carry around, someday it blows.
Yeah.
Like one day it's going to blow up in your face. And as soon as I started opening up, I'm not gonna lie, there were some people that didn't want to hear what I had to say. And there were some experiences where no one cared if I opened up or not. And I'm not, like, there were times that I just said I should have just shut up and I shouldn't have said anything. But in due time and with the right people, opening up really changes your life completely. Like I never thought I was gonna be in a podcast live, um, talking about everything that goes inside my brain, because it's something that I kept a secret for years, and I
Yeah,
didn't want anybody to know.
you were told that it was bad, no one should know about it, you should
Yeah.
keep it a secret, that only within the family you can talk about it, and what are people going to think and say. So you kind of shut out the whole
Yeah,
world.
and also because a few years ago, mental health was very like something that you were made fun of, and it wasn't really like open like it is now. So I do appreciate that. One of the reasons why I was told not to say anything is because at those times, like, mental health was looked upon like really really bad.
Yeah, there
And
was more taboo. I think now with the YouTube generation, we are talking more about this.
yeah, now it's like completely normal and everybody's talking about it. And like a lot of people have anxiety, a lot of people have depression, and now it's being taken seriously. But I remember, like, I still have friends that up to a few years ago, they were like, I don't understand why you have depression. Like, you
No, there
have
are going to be people that won't
everything.
understand.
Yeah, and people, like, there's always people that measure things through material things. Like, for example, I get told a lot that, why do you have depression? Like, I have a friend that also has depression, anxiety, and is probably dealing with the same things that I'm dealing with, and or probably even worse. And I remember she told me, she's like, well, of course you're doing better, you live it, your boyfriend's rich, your apartment is cool, like, of course your anxiety is doing better, of course you're getting better. And the thing is, um it doesn't matter how many things I have in my closet, how many expensive things I buy, or
Mm.
or how many shopping springs I have. Um I still feel like shit if mentally I'm not feeling well.
Yeah.
Like, I could be anywhere, um and it doesn't matter if I'm poor or rich or if I'm middle class. Like, mental health does not like you won't feel better with getting like a fancy present or something. It would not change anything. And I do still have people telling me like, you're so ungrateful, you have this, you have that, why isn't your brain working and working as it should? And in school, like, I'm not gonna say my family had money as we were growing up, but I always had everything I wanted. So obviously moving from the US to a poor neighborhood in this country, well, I always had new shoes, I had the best backpack, and I was always I was very spoiled from my family in the US. They would send me things. And obviously, I always had my Victoria's Secret perfumes and everything. So I always had a lot of things and a lot of pretty things. And I remember a lot of my friends telling me like, your family is making you how do you say,
Spoiled rotten.
spoiled, rotten, like useless. You're gonna grow up and you're like, I never, growing up, I never really cleaned the dishes. I never did laundry. I never cleaned because my mom said, she would always say, you have to study, and that's what you have to focus on. So obviously when my friends found out I couldn't cook, I didn't have to work. I didn't have to work really for anything. Everybody used to say, "Oh, your family's just making you stupid. Like you're gonna end up like you don't know what life is like and stuff like that." And um well, yeah, I was always treated really badly for having a lot of things in life. And it's funny how people think that just because I had all those things, I wasn't allowed to have depression. I wasn't allowed to have anxiety because they always used to say people are doing so much worse. People barely have food and stuff. But the thing is, um, I'm sick and I have a mental, like I have a chemical imbalance in my brain, and regardless of how much money you have or how much money you don't have, it still feels like shit. And a lot of people don't understand that till this day.
There's a very beautiful comment by Begonia that says, Desiree, you've evolved so much in such a short time. You look more and more confident in front of the camera. Keep on rocking, girl.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm going to say the same. I mean, obviously, with your mental health, just getting in front of a camera has been a problem because obviously your interaction stuff
Yeah.
and your body image and for many weeks it was like very uncertain, are you going to be on or not be on? But I think the last 5 weeks or so you've been on
Yeah,
each
no.
time, like maybe 5
I
minutes late.
actually, while Yannick was doing the Spanish live, I actually turned on my camera and I filmed a YouTube video for my channel, something I haven't done in like 5 months.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I unliked, and Yannick helped me unlike a lot of pages that I was following that did not bring me anything positive, and I started following things that were positive. And I guess I did feel kind of down, and obviously the eating disorder that I have affects me completely, and it affects every single aspect of my life, and it makes Yannick and I relationship even harder. But also I am feeling a little bit happier because it is my birthday tomorrow.
Yeah, it is her birthday tomorrow, so she's in a
my birthday,
very
and so
exciting mood.
I've been super excited and stuff. And I did get a surprise party yesterday from one of my students, a group of students that I teach, and they did like make a surprise party and stuff, and I've been getting like presents and stuff. And a lot of well, not a lot, but like a few friends that I thought that wouldn't remember my birthday did remember, and I've been they've been wanting to take me out for coffee or take me out for something. And so it's pretty nice because I am trying to be more positive, and life is getting easier.
Yeah, no, I mean,
every
we are
day.
going through a pandemic.
We
but,
are
But the thing about all of this, and just to kind of bring it back to the topic of today, so to connect some points for you guys, we're talking about how to pick your battles, and we're talking about if you want to pick your battles wisely, you have to create environments where there's dialogue, where people are willing to open up. And Des, she's talking a little bit about a lot of people around her didn't give her the confidence to open up. They would dismiss her, they would reject her, they would judge her when she would talk about her mental illness, her challenges, her fears, her frustrations, her problems. So she started keeping them to herself, and she started, just carrying more and more and more and more and more baggage and feeling alone in the world. And whenever she tried to let people in, it was a problem. And one of the things we have to reflect on is how many times a day do we reject people in our lives without even realizing it?
Yeah.
With micro rejections, for example. Micro rejections is, for example, let's say Des is super excited for a new movie or a new hobby or a new series. He wants to learn something new, and she comes to me. Like, for example, this is a real example. she wants to learn the violin. She was never allowed to get a violin growing up, so now she wants a violin.
No, my family couldn't afford a violin.
Okay. the basically, she didn't get a violin. She always wanted a violin. And now, as an adult, she every now and then she fantasizes about it. Let's say she comes to me and she's like, I want to learn the violin. I want to take a violin class, blah, blah, blah. And I go, violin, why do you want to learn the violin? Like, it's screechy, it's noisy, it's this and that. That's a small rejection that makes her less likely to communicate with me. And if I react like that every time she comes with an idea, then she learns that she needs to be very intense and force things. Right? So one thing I want you to reflect on is how many times a day are you maybe not exploding? Because yes, one of the things we're going to discuss today is when you explode and get out of control and give too much power to emotions. But how many times a day or how many times in your relationships are you doing smaller micro rejections of dismissing people, of making their ideas seem silly or insignificant, or making them feel like they're not up for the challenge? How many times do you make someone feel like that to the degree that they stop talking to you, that they stop trusting you?
Yeah.
Because picking your battles, sometimes you are fighting battles that you are fighting in a very soft way, but that's having a big impact. So yes, reflect on the big explosions and the emotions where you get super sad or upset and where you start fighting over silly things, but also start thinking about how many small micro conflicts do you have a day? How many small micro rejections do you have a day? How many times do you dismiss your loved one's idea?
I think I do that sometimes.
We all do. When we're drained, when we're insecure, we all do it sometimes.
Yeah, and parents tend to do it a lot with their kids, especially if they have one idea, like I want to do this, I want to do that, and parents tend to be like, why? Like, why do you want to do this?
And the thing is, sometimes we take it as an outright rejection, but it's just those people trying to take care of us.
Yeah.
They're trying to protect us and guide us through a safer path, a more predictable path. And then these paths that are maybe more risky or so a little bit different, they generate a bit more, stress. And Begonia says, I relate so much to what you're sharing, Desiree. For many years, I felt guilty for being depressed and wasting my life away. But what you say is so true. In my case, I grew up with everything monetarily, monetary speaking, and it just wasn't fixing what was going on inside of me. So trying to explain this to people as I was growing up wasn't easy. Also, thank you for being so vulnerable and brave to open up about your battles and also your success.
Yeah. Something happened to the live. It says sorry, we're having trouble.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Ah, okay.
It's fine.
Yeah, it took a lot for me to get here. And for me to finally open up and not be shy about everything that goes on in my head. And it still is like sometimes I don't even want to come on the podcast because I look terrible and I'm depressed and stuff like that. But recently, for the past 6 months, 7 months, I have an Instagram, of course, like everybody.
Of course.
But on my Instagram, I share a lot about my journey, and I was very judged for that because I had lots of friends saying me like, "Why do you write things on Instagram? Like, you shouldn't talk about those things and blah blah." But I would talk about my everyday life and how I faced panic attacks, and I would just write anything that was really on my mind. And after a while, I stopped doing it because I was so frustrated and stuff, and I just couldn't find any inspiration. And a few days ago, I read a post about someone that I very, very much admire, and then I realized that one of the main reasons why I write and why I speak is because yes, maybe I went through hell, and maybe it was very difficult for me, and it was terrible, and yes, in a way I always feel like it's not something I can get back, and there are years of my of life that I really would have loved to enjoy and stuff, and it's years, it's I was 16, 15, all these years that a lot of people were having the time of their life, and were just enjoying school and stuff, and I was just constantly like depressed and stuff, and going through so much pain, and I hated myself for that for years. Like I remember the first months that we were dating, I would cry. I would cry every night, and I would tell Yannick, it's just like this thing has taken so much away from me. Like I wanted to experience high school, I wanted to experience all these things, and I just can't do it. Like I can't go back to my high school graduation. Something that I didn't attend and I waited for 12 years for. And I always tell Yannick, like I feel terrible for that. That's something that I'm still not over because uh I I worked hard to finish school. I worked hard to graduate, and I decided not to eat. And then that's the time where I was like going to hospitals and stuff. And I tried to go. I really did try to go. I tried to walk to the venue, and I just couldn't. I was too weak, and I couldn't find a wheelchair. So it was it was terrible. Until this day, I still hate myself for destroying myself so much that the one thing that I waited for 12 years of my life, I was not able to
Yeah.
attend. And it still hurts me till this day, obviously not as much, but what was I saying? I was gonna say something, but yeah, the reason why I like sharing all these things is because, well, I mean, there's nothing I can change about it, and every moment I spend thinking that I won't get it back, that's another moment I won't get back.
Mm.
And if my story could help someone or make someone choose a better path, that's great. And if my pain can somehow turn into something positive and inspiring, well, then it's okay if I went through what I went through. Like it's okay that a lot of people they I can make them feel like, oh hey,
You're not
I'm
alone.
not alone.
Yeah. No, and when we talk about anything related to personal development, and when we talk about picking your battles and building strong relationships based on trust and communication and stuff, one of the hardest things is being vulnerable, because it's easier to explode at someone, it's easier to blame someone, it's easier to have a fight than it is to admit that you're feeling small inside. Sometimes admitting that you're feeling small or insecure is so hard that you prefer to blame someone else for your problems that you might be causing right now. Sometimes there's always external and internal factors, and most times it's a mixed. But sometimes you just gotta admit, I'm scared, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm this, I'm that. And not as an excuse to justify bad behaviors, but just to cut yourself some slack. I think a lot of us are very good at beating ourselves up. And as Des just said, beating yourself up is just a waste of time. It's time you don't get back. And if you can learn to pick your battles also with yourself better, there are a lot of things change. Because we think that our battles are just with our loved ones. We think our battles are just, oh, my partner this, or my friend this, or my parent this, or my son this. But how many times are we fighting battles with ourselves where we are beating ourselves up? And we're choosing to fight with ourselves because we feel so insecure or so insignificant that it is better to just beat ourselves up. How many times do you do that? I know I myself, even after years of personal development, after years of like working with this, studying this, applying this, and developing this further, I still beat myself up sometimes. I still fight with myself in my head when I put my head to bed or when I am in the shower sometimes. And that's something that you also got to learn, because in Develop Young, we talk about this concept that we have mental, emotional, social, and physical energy, that we can stress out, we can burn out, we can tire ourselves out. And when we are drained in any of those four pillars, what happens is we're no longer as patient, as empathetic, as flexible, as kind, as generous, as optimistic, and we kind of go to a darker place. And one of the things that most triggers us going to a dark place is not picking our battles wisely. So that applies both to fighting our loved ones and creating a lot of resentment and frustration and guilt, but it also applies to us with ourselves, beating ourselves up and making ourselves feel like shit.
I just realized I haven't ate since breakfast, and then realizing that I got anxiety. And I was like, I have not eaten anything. since breakfast, and now I'm just like, what if I faint in the podcast or something?
You won't.
So I grabbed a Jello. So yeah, I just realized that
That's funny because
I'm supposed to make tostadas today.
I'm down.
I'm gonna try to. I'm going to try. I don't like cooking, but every once in a while I get inspired to cook. And yesterday we went in the grocery store, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make some tostadas, but I forgot like 3 main ingredients.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're speaking so low that I'm just all like, am I gonna pass out because Yannick is speaking so low?
It's 'cause I'm speaking close to the microphone. I hope the levels. So if the levels are bad, let me know. Or if I'm speaking too low, let me know. But yeah, put on the headphones because then you'll hear me nice and amplified.
It's just my headband. It's
Yeah.
cute, and the headphones cover my headband, so that's why I'm
If you
not
didn't know, she has a very fiery side, and it affects a lot of her choices as well. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about picking our battles with ourselves.
Oh, yeah, it's very important to pick our battles with ourselves.
So how are you gonna how are you going to start picking your battles with yourself better? Because one of the things she says, she's very violent, right? And I'm like, yeah, okay. She says she's like has anger problems. Kinda. Not that much. What she does have is she has a great ability to beat herself up and torture herself. And she directs her anger towards herself. Every time she gets angry, she goes, I'm not mad at you, I'm mad at me. And I'm like, I don't care who you're mad at. I actually prefer you being mad at me because then I can fix it. If you're mad at yourself, what can I do or say for you to stop being mad at yourself? Give you a bunch of compliments that you're not going to receive right now? It's like, look at this, look at that. Let's look at it this way. Let's do something to regenerate you, distract you. But when you get when you make yourself your own enemy, that one's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. One way that I've been able to calm my voices down is I tell Yannick what they're telling me.
Yeah, she has like these voices in her head that tell her a bunch of mean things, but she's now named them. She's given them like personalities and names and things, and now it's just like, oh, Stacy this and the other voice this, and then she kind of pits them against each other too.
Yeah, it's they're very hard to control. Like I've had these voices, I don't even know when they showed up. But I've had these voices for a while. When I'm doing okay and I'm doing great and I'm at the best version of myself, they're not there. But it is when I'm fighting anxiety, when I'm fighting depression, that they're there. And obviously in our relationship, Yannick has found like an awesome way to know when it's me and when it's them speaking. And it's very hard because they make every day a battle. And if it's from small things like, oh, I try a pair of jeans and they no longer fit me or they squeeze me, they can throw me into a mental state for the whole entire day of feeling really bad for myself. And one thing that I've learned that helps a lot is when they're talking to me, I tell Yannick, like I tell them exactly what they're telling me.
This is what they're telling me.
And recently we had something that they were telling me that Yannick was seeing someone else and was talking to someone else. And
for the record, she's the least jealous girlfriend I've ever had.
Yeah.
And she we have a kind of open relationship. Like we don't really execute on it, but we just kind of cross each other.
Talk to other people more than
like when the pandemic started, I told her get on Tinder and talk to other people so you don't get bored of me type deal. So but when you're drained and insecure, sometimes there are these little voices in our heads that want to tell you things that aren't true or that are blown out of proportion or are just kind of to kind of put a crack, like create more division. And when you have a mental illness, sometimes you have these voices that can, create a lot more mental noise to kind of keep you in a little bit of a loop.
Yeah.
And with the pandemic, you've had to fight more of those voices. That's been more of a
Yeah, they've been really tough. At first, they would obviously not let me talk to Yannick and create Yannick the enemy, and Yannick would get shut out. But recently, yesterday, I did have an episode, and the first thing I told Yannick is that they're not being nice to me, and then when you communicate those things, it's easier for you to face them than when you don't and you try to fix them yourself.
Yeah.
And that's something that I have lots of trouble with. And it's very, very important for you to pick your battles when it comes to your voices, because they're I mean, there's some things that you're just so like, really? Like when they were telling me that Yannick was talking to someone else and that he had someone else and he was planning to break up with me, like the first thing that I did was went up to Yannick and I'm like, "Are you talking to someone else?" And he was like half asleep and he's like, "No." And I'm just like, "My voices are saying that you're talking to someone else and you're going to leave me and you're tired of me and blah blah blah." And then Yannick's all like, check both of my phones. They're right on the nightstand. Like, just check them and you'll see that, like, there's no one there. And he grabbed his phone. And one thing that I never do, like, I never check phones. Like, that's one thing that I'm just like, I think it's so low of a person to do. So yeah, I don't ever check anybody's phone.
She's like, that's private. I'm not touching that. I'm not touching that. I trust you. It's okay. It's just my voices. It's just my voices. And like, they're telling me this and I'm feeling like shit.
Yeah,
like,
like as
okay,
soon as he
let's-
said that, I was just like, no. I don't do that. I don't do that, because it's important for you to remember who you are when you have these moments. And for me, I know that I don't check people's phones. I'm not the jealous type. I don't do this. I don't do that. And I know what when it's my voices and when it's me. And I'm not that jealous type of person. Like I don't. Yannick has his privacy, and I hate when people go through my phone. I hate when people go through my things. Like I hate it. If anything, the only reason I go through Yannick's things is because sometimes I clean up his side of the closet and sometimes I'm organizing things. But if I find something that's like, oh, what is this? I'm just like, oh no. I leave it here and whatever it is, I don't need to know about it. But if anything, that's the only reason why I open up his drawers. But if I didn't have to do that, like, well, I don't have to do that. But if I didn't want to do that, there would be no reason for me to go through his side of the closet. So yeah.
And Begonia says, yeah, with eating disorders and depression, we tend to beat ourselves up. I'm learning to not fight so much with me and focusing on my dreams and things that inspire me instead. And also, and maybe it doesn't always have to be a fight for it to be valuable. Yeah, I mean, there is this thing where we think relationships need to be difficult for them to be valuable, where things need to be difficult for like projects to be difficult for them to be valuable. And sometimes we value them more if there's complications. And then we seek out problems where there are none, or we make problems where there are none. But it is something that we have to be very conscious about. Where is this thought process coming from? Because the cool thing about Des and what she's been talking a little bit about in terms of picking battles is she now has developed a mental spam filter that tells her this is spam, and she tells me I'm getting this false information in my head. I know it's not real, but it's still affecting me. It's weighing me down. Can we work on it? And there's an episode called Developing a Mental Spam Filter that I recommend. But yeah, it's really, really cool when you develop that and realize, you know what? This information is not relevant right now. And that's one of the things that Des was just talking about. It's how many times are you having these voices in your head tell you things, but you react on it instead of investigate. And now she's making food because we're both hungry. But one of the things that happens is sometimes we don't pick those battles. Sometimes we react to that little voice in our head that's tearing away at us. And in the beginning, like, and here when Des comes back, she can kind of attest to this. In the beginning of our relationship, whenever there was, your voices, they would have more control and power.
Yeah.
And those voices would kind of create a lot of doomsday scenarios.
Yeah, sorry if I'm moving a lot. It's just that anxiety has been very difficult for me today, and so I realize that if I force myself to be sitting here throughout the whole podcast, I can go through a panic attack, and that's even worse. Or I can have a bad next few hours after the podcast. So if I'm moving a lot and like making food and stuff, it's because it's much easier for me to get up and do things. And I'm listening to what Yannick's saying and I'm in the topic, but I found that a way to cope with a panic attack or with anxiousness or something is to get up and just do something.
Distract yourself.
Yeah, distract myself. So yeah. What were you saying?
What was I saying? Yeah. For example, in the beginning of our relationship, your voices had way more power, and you would let those trigger more of a battle, trigger more of a separation, trigger more of a battle with yourself, or a battle with someone else, and you would assume things that weren't really happening, and it would turn into a battle. And now you have developed enough of a spam filter in your mind where you just go like, you know what? This is my voice saying this because of this and that, and it's not real, but it's still a very loud voice. Let me fight that voice. And Begonia says, and I'm also learning which voices to listen to, which relationships to nurture, and which don't. That is super important. And don't apologize for listen to yourself. Yeah. By the way, Begonia, I'm very grateful that you've gone through the whole Spanish podcast, joining us in the comments, and now the English podcast. Actually, for us, the English podcast has always been a bit more of a challenge because we have fewer English speakers, and Des obviously always has her constant battle, and getting on camera has been a challenge, but she's been kicking ass. And thank you for acknowledging that and celebrating her today.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for all the comments and all the love. I
got a little bit of piece of like crumbs in my eye, and I can feel it that I have a piece of crumb, and then I'm just trying to make myself cry so it can just come out.
Just cry for it. Cry.
Cry in front of the camera.
Cry in front of the camera.
Yeah, but thank you so much for the comments. Yeah, it was very difficult at first because I shut out Yannick. Like I didn't tell him anything. I didn't tell him anything about my anxiety or my panic attacks. Like I shut him out completely about a lot of things. And it wasn't until I started to be honest with him, and I was just like, you know what? For years, this keeping secrets thing has never brought anything good. And so I just said, well, what if I tell him everything? And then Yannick was like, oh, okay. I know how to deal with it. And for me, it was just such a blessing to be able to meet him and his family and his team, because it was what I needed at that moment. It's what I wanted, is what I was looking for, and I always dreamed of having someone like Yannick in my life, and when I found him, it was really hard for me to believe, and now till this day, it's really hard for me to believe. And I'm not gonna lie, I have terrible days, and sometimes I don't know how to pick my battles, but it is something that you will learn how to do slowly. It's not something that you're gonna be able to change one day to another. No, it's something that you're going to learn slowly. Like last night, I could have let my voices taken over, but the first thing I did is I told Yannick, and they're not being nice to me. And then what Yannick did was just try to distract me. Yeah. And I had two choices there. I could either shut up and make both me and Yannick's night miserable, or I could just tell him, hey, the voices are not being nice. Can you, just wanted to let you know. So I guess communication is key. Very key. And if you're going through a battle, it's very, very key. And you don't have to face things alone. No. You don't have to face things alone. And if you want to face a battle, go ahead and do it. But also know, is this really worth it?
Yeah, and Begonia says, you can tell you're building a beautiful and real relationship with little smileys, hearts and stuff. And by communicating what's really going on and willing to grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, one of the things we have to understand, and when we talk about this topic of picking our battles, when we don't know how to pick up battles, it's because we're feeling so weak, we're feeling so small, we have so little mental clarity, so little energy to actually explore the possibilities. So we go into reactive mode or defensive mode, but we don't actually explore what's relevant right now. And sometimes we live too much in the past, and then we develop kind of a depressive state because of that. Or we live too much in the future, and we develop kind of an anxious state because of that. But rarely do we take the time to just kind of live in the moment and be like, what is relevant right now? What are the factors? What's the general context that really needs to be considered right now? What context is just noise? What information am I receiving or generating in my head that is making me become more conflict prone, whether with myself or with others? And when you go through that and filter the noise and get clarity and have the confidence to express, I'm feeling this, I'm thinking this, I'm worried about this, I'm concerned about this, I'm facing this, it's like you can find a solution. But if you're in the, I don't have problems, I don't want to face my problems, I don't want to see them, and you just kind of start fighting and justifying and blaming and getting very intense and bundling everything up, that's when you really start just taking on every battle and turning things that shouldn't be a battle into a battle. And when you actually take the time to kind of filter out the noise, leave the past in the past, be open to many different futures, not just one specific future, it kind of opens you up to see what's really relevant now and what's going to contribute to the future I want in 5 years. Is picking this battle going to create the future I want in 5 years? Is picking this battle going to create the relationship I want? Is picking this battle going to create the team I want or the career I want? Yes or no? Because many battles only serve to amplify insecurities and make people more drained and insecure. That's not to say there aren't battles that are worth fighting. Obviously, it's called picking your battles, not eliminating battles, because there are battles that you got to have. There are going to disagreements. And, we rarely have a strong disagreement. We're pretty chill. Whenever we have, most of the battles we've had have been with your voices or with your anxiety. Yeah. I'm trying to think if we even have had a real disagreement. I can't remember one right now. But
me posting things on social media that sometimes are. I think that's the only disagreement we've had.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah.
I don't investigate things.
Sometimes Des doesn't do the best job at investigating what she's sharing and what's the message behind it, and just kind of shares things very fast. And sometimes she shared some things where I go that's a conspiracy theory that is going to hurt a lot of people. That's a post that's going to offend a lot of people. Sometimes we've had some disagreements about that. But that's kind of the strongest disagreement we've actually had in our relationship.
I think,
and they haven't been really disagreements. You've just kind of in the beginning you didn't understand why I really worried so much about what is it that you're sharing. And I think nowadays it's you know what, I get it. And you're more careful now with what you share. And there was also, I think, a part of that when you're more numb, when you're more emotionally numb, when you're in a darker place, you have less energy to investigate what is this, and then you just kind of go with the flow, right?
Yeah, I'm just I don't really care what it's for and blah blah blah. And then I just I post it, and then it's and I think one of the disagreements is that I told him now I can't post anything without you telling me to take it down or research it. And so I got really offensive. But then I realized that he was doing something very nice for me and just being hey Des, investigate what that page is and why they posted it. But I'm really quick to post things. So half of the time now I just post funny things, and then whatever that has to do with the government or whatever, any topic, just
and you've also, we also did a bit of a filtering job on your social media to make sure you didn't have as much
I deleted a lot of friends
bad,
and
negative stuff
that
also got you to think certain things. And one of the tricks to picking your battles better is also digesting more positive content.
Yeah.
If everything in your home is shit, at least make sure that the content you're digesting, the outside world, the way you perceive it, is full of opportunities, full of compassion, full of love, full of empathy. But if at home we're having conflicts, and then everything you digest about the outside world tells you that everything is terrible, everything is the worst, and blah, 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 of course it's going to be hard to have positivity. And Begonia says, with what you're saying, I can see I've been dealing all my life with feeling alone due to some experiences in the past. I guess my challenge is being brave enough to communicate whenever I need help. I'm starting to do it. Yes, that is a big one. That's a big challenge because many times we conclude that we're alone because we haven't found the right people to take part of our support network. Everyone needs a support network. I'm a big fan, and you guys have heard me talk about this a million times. But you need to build a strong support network. But sometimes you want certain key people to be part of that support network that aren't ready to be that to play that role that you want them to.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want that sibling. Sometimes you want that parent. Sometimes you want that friend. Sometimes you want that partner to be that support network that they aren't ready for. And it's not that they don't want to. They just don't have the tools, resources, and knowledge to do it yet. Her family, when it came to anxiety, they wanted to help. There were many things they didn't understand. And now that they understand a lot more, they are being a much bigger support network for her. I don't know if Mara, if you're around. Mara, are you in the podcast? I don't think she's right now. But her sister was very active in the chat last week, and like she talks about that, how before it was hard to help her, but she wanted to, and instead they had a lot of conflicts because they didn't understand each other. So sometimes we got to stop pointing fingers or playing the blame game or feeling alone or feeling like no one cares. Many times people care more than they realize. They just don't have the tools to actually help in the way that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Keep looking, and
you will find people.
You will find people.
As someone that had all her friends ditch her, most of them, most of my friends, literally, I was left with only 2 friends that wanted to help me out. You will find better people.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I can already tell you're doing a better job. I mean, with this, because I've seen your evolution since the first comments in the podcast to now. Like, you're opening up way more with your questions, with your awarenesses. Like, you're being way more vulnerable and way more open. And I remember a few weeks back when you talked about how uncomfortable it made you. One, that we used your name when we would read the comments, and two, like you just kind of felt a little uncomfortable with it. And I think you also had an awareness of, you know what, it is a contribution to others, so I should keep doing it. But every podcast and everything we've been doing content wise, every time you kind of participate more, and that's valuable. That's a first step. And acknowledging, also looking at things that maybe were hard to look at. The amount of things that you've also been looking at lately, it's impressive. It's hard. Like with Des, there's been a lot of things that she's had a hard time looking at.
Yeah.
Really hard time looking at, and certain things that she had to reevaluate. And it's been, I mean, it's a continuous process.
It's been a journey.
A journey and a half. But little by little, you'll start building a strong support network. You will start finding people. And I mean, luckily, in your case, you're digesting content. You're in part of personal development communities, and that kind of helps because you have people that hopefully have more empathy and more curiosity as to how things work. But little by little, the people around you will also come. They'll surprise you. Little by little, the people around you will surprise you. Maybe they can't be that person in your support network that you need right now, but maybe in a year or 2 or 3 or 5, they will be the person you need in that moment. And sometimes you need to train the people in your support network, as in educate them. Like sometimes you got to educate them. This is what I'm going through. These are the symptoms. These are the challenges. This is the help that I've sought. These are the struggles I faced. You know, please take that into account. And with Des, the moment she started educating her loved ones more, instead of feeling alone or feeling upset, it was like all of a sudden, like, you know what? Suddenly she started to get more of the help that she wanted, and it's been beautiful seeing not only her growth but her whole family's growth. It's been beautiful to see how they're getting along and how much Des has grown. But yeah, it's this whole picking battles thing. It's the more curiosity you have to understand, the more vulnerability you have to express yourself openly, the more willingness to keep trying things when you've kind of gotten fatigued, and the more willingness you have to not draw any permanent conclusions, because many times we conclude that relationships have to be a certain way, that our mental health challenges have to be a certain way. Sometimes we just conclude that there's no home. But many times just having the curiosity to be like, you know what? There is hope. There is possibilities. There are people out there that are ready to help. There are people out there ready to understand. We can do this. It changes a lot, and it starts with celebrating the small wins, because they're going to be things in your journeys with how you deal with your emotions and how you deal with your traumas that are going to take years to heal. And Des, for example, she's eating behind the camera. You can eat in front of the camera if you want. Just, it's a chill. Bring the food. As you can see, now the podcast is becoming way more low key, way more relaxed. What was I saying before I got distracted by the yummy food you're eating?
I made you some. It's heating.
Awesome, thank you.
That it took me years, or some. No, you said something. I can't remember. And I got distracted with the beautiful food.
Yeah.
If someone in the comments can help us out, what Yannick just said.
Sometimes my brain stops working for a small amount of time. No, I was saying, I've got this. I can do this. I believe in myself. I believe in my ability to finish my thoughts. What was I saying?
I don't know. What were you saying?
I don't know. I was probably saying something brilliant, and then
yeah, you did say something good, because I came in and I was like, "Oh, this is good." No, I can't remember. I can't remember what you were saying.
This is the worst. This is hilarious.
Yeah. You were talking about.
Yes. Thank you. Begonia says you were talking about training your support team. So, you've had a very active process of educating people around you.
Yeah, I have to educate everyone around me, because I I live around people that don't really understand what anxiety is, and training my family, training my loved ones, it was very 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 difficult for me to do. And one thing that we have to understand is that not everybody will be ready for it, and that doesn't mean that they don't love you or they don't care about you. It's just that really people, we're not the only ones that have a hard time. Everybody's having a hard time. Everybody is going through something, and sometimes they don't have time, and that's okay. It took me a lot to train my family, because well, obviously they didn't understand what was going on, and they quite didn't believe that there were mental illnesses. So it was a process. But one thing you got to remember: if they want to change, if they want to learn, it will be successful. And if they don't even waste time. I still have family members that still don't understand what goes through my mind, that still don't understand what I'm going through, and I don't even bother to like let them know anymore. And yeah, so I guess one of the what is that? Uh, you do have to train your loved ones as long as they want to be trained.
Yeah, and now I remember what I was going with that. Some things are going to take years. And for example, you sometimes ask me, when is this part going to stop? When is this part going to end? When is this type thing going to be over? Or when are they going to understand this? When are they, like, both within yourself, your anxiety and your mental disorders, but also with other people? You know, sometimes we get impatient. Sometimes we just want to break. Sometimes we just want to break, and it's like, when are we going to be over with this? And the reality is, some traumas and some processes are several year-long processes. Like, you've grown significantly in the last year, but there's still a lot of battles to face, a lot of challenges to overcome.
I don't feel like I've grown significantly this year, but
It's
yeah,
a huge one. It's a huge one. When I met you, you were a stick with no energy, no confidence, with panic attacks everywhere. You couldn't go into a supermarket. You couldn't go in an elevator. You couldn't go into a parking lot. You couldn't do anything without a panic attack. It was like a panic attack everywhere, and it would like put you in bed for days.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've come a long way. And Begonia says, I've been struggling with exactly that. And I have to go now, but I'll watch the rest later. Thank you so much. And honestly, thank you. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for all the questions, all the comments, all the, just you're part of our support network. And that's a fact. Like, we're in front of this camera because of people like you. And this is something we love doing and something that we're proud of, and it gets easier when there are people like you that kind of support us on our journey. So thank you very much. I really mean that. Yeah. Anyway, we're about to wrap up, but I do want you guys to reflect on how many of your conflicts are a result of just different parties being emotionally, mentally, socially, or physically drained, and the timing being wrong, and therefore not having the energy or confidence to actually manage the emotions in a healthy way, and then focusing more on the frustration than on the solution. And also the conclusions that we have come to from our past, that no one cares, that no one is willing to put in the work, that no one is willing to be generous or patient or flexible. We have to understand that things take time. And people have to go through their own challenges and their own evolutions. And you don't know what's going on in the other person's head. Like, if I see that she's being a bit more moody at some point, it's like, you know what? There's something behind this. And many times, if I had gotten upset and let it blow out of proportion, that could have destroyed the relationship.
Lots of times.
Many times. Many times she said things that if I actually took them literally, I would feel like shit. But because she's good at telling me the difference between when it's her voices and when it's her, and when she's done a good job at communicating how she thinks and what her values are, when something deviates from her values or her thoughts, then I know this is not her speaking. It's one of her voices or a friend. And sometimes she's wanted to have a fight with me over, and this happened more in the beginning of our relationship, when friends told her a lot of cruel things that made her scared. And I remember one time she was saying things and I was like, this is not how you think. Who put that idea into your head? There's something missing. Like, there's something you're not telling me. Who said what and why? And then she told me, my colleagues told me this and my colleagues told me that. And they told me this and that and that and that. And then I was like, oh, that makes sense. This conflict is not between you and I. This is other people putting their insecurities and reflecting them on you, and you feeling scared. And then you trying to accelerate the pain. How many of you have gone through the process of accelerating the pain? You think that you're going to get hurt. You feel like you're going to get rejected. You feel like everything is going to collapse. So you might as well accelerate the pain.
Me, every single day. That's literally me. Yeah, I've been trying to break up for Yannick for the whole entire year that we've been dating. And it's because, like, I get frustrated and my voices are just like, he's gonna leave, and I just like, okay, I gotta leave before he leaves me, type deal. But yeah, I've been trying to break up with him since the moment we started dating.
How many times are you trying to accelerate the pain, or you're assuming a pain is going to happen and you prefer to inflict the pain on yourself than chance the pain happening outside of your control? And then you prefer to create a controlled environment where you're giving yourself pain all the time. And therefore you're fighting with people and pushing people away.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one. That's a big, that sometimes you just like trying to rip off the Band-Aid, and it's like, but you're actually inflicting pain that wouldn't happen if you were confident enough to be optimistic about things. How many times have you pushed people away because you're afraid of losing them? Just think about that. How many times have you made people feel like shit that you actually wanted to make feel loved? Think about that, because this is something that we, unfortunately, when we give so much power to our insecurities and our loud voices in our heads, we assume things that leads us to act in a certain way, that we assume, like we create problems that don't exist. We let small problems become big problems. We let small petty things turn into existential crises. How many
Me
how many existential crises do you get from small things?
all the time, every single day. But I know that it might seem like, oh, she's not working on it, but I do. Sometimes my existential crises will used to be like 4 days, and now they're just like 1 hour. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't have time for this. I have things to do, places to be. I do not have time for it. So I get up and I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Um, or else I take myself shopping. But no, yeah, these are very good questions to reflect on because a lot of us, we push people away because we're afraid of getting hurt, and I'm very guilty of that. I do that a lot, and that's why I say that I've been trying to break up with Yannick for the past year because I'm afraid to lose him, and and he makes my life so much easier, and yeah, I am independent without him. Like if he breaks up with me, it's fine. I've lived 22 years of my life without him. But I am afraid to lose him. I'm afraid that he's going to not want to be part of my life anymore. And yeah, that makes me want to push him away so it won't hurt as much. But the thing is that every single moment that I spend thinking that way is a moment that I could be watching a movie with him or laughing or I don't know, taking an adventure together or doing something positive together. And we gotta really, really think about that. That we waste so much time thinking about the most negative, disastrous things that could happen, and we don't realize, well, we have this person right now, and this person loves me now. What can I do?
And then now. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing, like, and the more you realize, if you're living too much in the past, you're afraid of repeating the past. If you live too much in the future, you're afraid of all the doomsday scenarios. I mean, if you're drained and insecure, obviously there are times where you are a dreamer, and we all go through phases where we're more of a dreamer and where we're more like scared. And I think most people have a mix of both. Just make sure it's a healthy mix and not totally imbalanced. Um, it's good to have some caution about things in the future, but not like so much caution that you're afraid about doomsday scenarios. So you create the doomsday scenarios, which is for her, like her anxiety is a lot of like, oh my goodness, all of these things are gonna happen. So let me just kind of make them happen fast. And that's a problem if you go through life creating problems that aren't really there just because you're afraid of them happening in the future. And picking battles is also one of the things about picking battles is what is relevant now, not what happened in the past, not what thing or did he say or do in the past, or what thing is going to happen in the future. What's relevant now? What's relevant now to enjoy this moment, to build a foundation for the future I want? Is fighting this going to build the future I want? Yes or no? If it's just going to accelerate the future you don't want, don't do it. It's not going to be better. Think about that for a minute. How many times have you accelerated down a path of destruction or self destruction just because you were afraid of being rejected, being hurt? So you just applied to hurt yourself. Honestly, if you're willing to be optimistic about possibilities and you're willing to have some level of agility and confidence that, the future is bright and I have control of my, like, I have control of my life and my direction and my path. If you genuinely feel in control, you're going to make better choices. But if you genuinely believe that your happiness depends on others, then you're not going to build the future you want. And you're going to have more conflicts. So only pick battles that are an opportunity to optimize or improve communication, trust, confidence, impact, and accelerate your path to the dreams that you do have and to the lifestyle that you want and the relationships you want. Okay, those are the ones you should pick. But pick them playing a win-win game, not a zero-sum game. If you're playing a zero-sum game, for me to win, you have to lose, or vice versa, everyone loses. But if you're willing to play a game of like, let's create a win-win situation where we all get what we want and we take into account everyone and we create something beautiful, then you can heal relationships. Then you can unlock people. Then you can contribute to people. And that is beautiful. Picking your battles is about that. It's about picking the fights that are going to help you level up. Not picking the fights that are going to destroy you or your relationships. There are many fights that are worth having because they help you level up. And many of those fights are with your voices. Many of those fights are with your anxieties. Many of those fights are with situations that are not working. But if you really focus on destroying something, you're not building. Focus on building instead of destroying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm ready to make some pozole.
I like that. Now, that is my cue. But, yeah, think about this because, honestly, 95%, this is obviously a fake number, but the vast majority of the battles you're having right now are not contributing to the future you want, not to the relationships you want, and it's just you giving power to your insecurities or other parties giving power to their insecurities. When you're having tension, when you're having problems, whether with your battles with yourself or battles with others, take the time, breathe, recharge your battery so that you're emotionally, physically, socially, and mentally in a better state. Make sure that you are in your best state to have the empathy, patience, and understanding. Make sure that the other parties involved also are in their best state. Focus on fixing problems and optimizing things. Don't focus on pointing fingers. Make sure to identify which fights and battles are worth having to actually level up. Identify which ones are distraction, waste of time, and time that you cannot get back. Identify which ones are born out of you trying to accelerate the pain instead of actually, trusting the process and building the process that you want. And with that in mind, I'm going to put a promo for next week's episode where we're going to talk about expanding your comfort zone. And if I can find the mouse. So promo, here we go. Hey guys, let's talk a little bit about comfort zone. How are you managing your comfort zone? And does a comfort zone serve any positive purpose? I'm sure a lot of you are like, comfort zones are terrible, it's an excuse to not grow, etc., etc. And yes, that's a common issue, that we use our comfort zones as an excuse to stop growing or to stop challenging ourselves. But I will say comfort zones do serve some value. They serve value in the sense that they can be a comfortable space where we can recharge our battery, they can provide us with inner peace, they can give us a confidence boost because it's an area where we feel very capable or we feel very comfortable. So it can reduce a bit of stress. However, if we stay in our comfort zone too long, or if we keep our comfort zone very little for too long, we will feel trapped, we will feel incapable, we will start generating more stress and insecurities than if we challenge ourselves to either expand our comfort zone or step out of our comfort zone. Ultimately, you need to do both. Often, the first step is to step out of your comfort zone, try something new, try something uncomfortable, and do it so much that you reach a point where it suddenly becomes comfortable and it becomes part of your comfort zone. But your comfort zone still has value. When you're fatigued, when you're burned out, when you're stressed, when you're insecure, returning to your comfort zone for a quick top up, for a quick moment of peace is a wonderful thing. However, if you identify that you spend too long time in your comfort zone, that's when you need to challenge yourself or ask for help or reflect on what other options are there, Is there a reason why I'm in this comfort zone? Am I escaping from something that I need to fix or solve or face? Or am I in this comfort zone because I don't have enough motivation? And why do I not have enough motivation? There are many reasons why we end up feeling discouraged or settling or ending up in that situation where we are in our comfort zone for too long. But when we identify that, the important thing is to not beat ourselves up. It's understandable that we are in our comfort zone every now and then. Have a bit of empathy with yourself, cut yourself some slack, Don't beat yourself up, because then you'll just end up spending more time in your comfort zone. Understand this is perfectly normal, but that doesn't mean that I want to overextend my stay in my comfort zone. And the moment you really take control of your life and you identify, you know what? I think I've overstayed. Now it's time to get out there, face the world, try new things, follow my face, lift myself up again, and grow. That's when everything changes. So, if you want to explore how to manage your comfort zone in a much more positive way, join us this Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Time on our live broadcast, Develop Development Unplugged, which will be live streaming both on Facebook and on YouTube. So, see you there. Have a good one. So, there we go. That pretty much sums up next week's episode. I think it's a very important episode because a lot of people think that comfort zones are bad, and it's not bad. It just serves a certain purpose, and it's that place where you feel at peace, you feel comfortable, you feel relaxed, where you can recharge your battery to get back out there, expanding your comfort zone, learning new things, facing fears, growing as a person, building new relationships, trusting again. But a little bit of comfort zone can go a long way for you to grow. Just don't get stuck there. And you've sometimes had to, the microphone is over there.
Yes.
You've sometimes gotten stuck too long in your comfort zone.
Yeah. So next week is going to be quite exciting to tell you guys how I got out of there.
Yeah, it's been an impressive process, because sometimes she's gone months and years in parts of her comfort zone, and when she unlocks, it's powerful. It's powerful. So anyway, with that in mind, we say goodbye. Thank you very much for all the comments, all the interaction. It's wonderful to see you guys participating more, and see you next week. Have a good one. Bye. Now if I can find, there we go. Bye-bye.